Imagine we are standing in a classified clean room deep inside Palmdale, California, Hangar 4. The kind of place that doesn't exist on any map you can buy. On the table in front of us is a massive slab of scorched, blackened metal. It doesn't look like an airplane. It looks like a meteorite that survived a bad re-entry. The edges are blunted, the panels are discolored, shifting from titanium blue to a dull, dead charcoal. If you didn't know better, you'd say this was wreckage pulled from a crash site in the Nevada desert. You would be wrong. This isn't a crash site. This is just what the aircraft looks like after a successful Tuesday morning test flight. It's May 2026. While the world is arguing about the stealth coatings on the F-47 Phoenix, the engineers inside Lockheed Martin's Skunk works have been quietly perfecting a machine that ignores the rules of modern warfare entirely. The SR-72 Darkstar, the son of Blackbird. I'm James. Welcome back to the Hidden Muster. Today we are not looking at flight paths or geopolitical maps. We are putting a Mach 6 assassin on the autopsy table. We are going to take our digital scalpel and peel back the layers of the SR-72, from the scorched epidermis down to its violent mechanical heart. We are going to examine the exact forensic evidence of what happens to a machine when it breaks the laws of physics and flies at 4,000 miles per hour. Hand me the scalpel. Let's make the first cut. Our first incision is the skin, the epidermis. When you look at a 5th-gen jet like the F-35, the skin is a delicate, high-maintenance coating. It's a radar-absorbent film that needs a climate-controlled hanger just to keep from peeling. The SR-72 doesn't have the luxury of being delicate. At Mach 6, the atmosphere isn't air anymore. It's a physical abrasive. It acts like high-velocity sandpaper, stripping anything that isn't chemically bonded to the airframe. The friction on the nose and the leading edges of those stubby wings generates temperatures exceeding 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That isn't just hot, that is the temperature of a blast furnace. If you built this aircraft from standard aerospace aluminum, it would lose its structural integrity and melt into a liquid puddle in less than 60 seconds. Even the legendary titanium used on the original SR-71 Blackbird would warp and creep under this thermal load. Look at this panel under the forensic light. We aren't looking at metal. We are looking at carbon-carbon composites and ceramic matrix structures. It's the same material science we use for the heat shields on atmospheric re-entry vehicles. But armor isn't enough. Heat is like water. It always finds a way in. If that 3,500-degree inferno soaks into the internal bays, it will fry the avionics, melt the wiring, and detonate the fuel. Look closely at the underside of this skin panel. See these microscopic veins? This is the thermal management system. The SR-72 acts like a living, breathing organism. It pumps its own cryogenic jet fuel, thousands of gallons of it, right beneath the skin. The freezing fuel absorbs the catastrophic heat, chilling the airframe from the inside out. The fuel actually boils inside these pipes, turning into a pressurized vapor milliseconds before it's injected into the engine. The SR-72 is a machine that survives by eating the very heat that is trying to kill it. Let's cut deeper. We're moving past the skin and looking at the structural geometry, the musculature. If you look at the wings of a Raptor or a J-20, you see curves designed for lift. High pressure on the bottom, low pressure on the top. But at Mach 6, standard lift is a death sentence. At those speeds, traditional wings would generate so much lift they would simply snap off the fuselage. The SR-72 is a wave rider. Look at the nose. It's not a needle, it's a flat, blunt spade. This is forensic design at its most brutal. At hypersonic speeds, the air can't get out of the way fast enough. It compresses into a solid wall of shock waves. A normal aircraft hitting that wall would be crushed to pieces like an empty soda can. The SR-72 is shaped to intentionally trap that shockwave underneath its own belly. It doesn't fly through the air, it surfs on top of its own sonic destruction. This is compression lift. The sheer brute force of the compressed air underneath the aircraft is what holds it in the sky. It's like skipping a stone across a lake at 4,000 miles per hour. But this musculature is a nightmare to control. It's inherently unstable. If the nose pitches up or down by even a fraction of a degree, the shock wave slips. If that shock wave slips, the air jams into the engine inlets with enough force to cause an unstart, a violent engine failure that would turn the aircraft into a fireball instantly. The flight computers are making 10,000 micro-adjustments per second just to keep the Darkstar balanced on the razor's edge of its own shockwave. It is a high-wire act performed at the edge of space, and the rope is made of fire. Now, we reach the chest cavity. We are looking at the heart. This is the holy grail of 2026 aviation engineering, the turbine-based combined cycle, or TBCC. The problem with a scramjet, a supersonic combustion ramjet, is that it's useless on a runway. A scramjet is just a hollow tube. It has no moving parts. It cannot suck air in. It can only process air that is already being rammed into it at Mach 3 or higher. So the SR-72 has to have two hearts. For takeoff and the initial climb, it uses a pair of high-performance turbine engines, similar to what you'd find in an F-35, but heavily modified. It climbs to 80,000 feet and pushes to Mach 3. Then, the autopsy gets violent. This is called the transition phase. Right here in the main inlet duct, massive mechanical blast doors, built from the same ceramics as the nose, slam shut. They seal off the turbine engines entirely. If Mach 3 air hit those spinning fan blades, they would shatter into 1,000,000 pieces of shrapnel. Simultaneously, a bypass lane opens. The supersonic air is funneled directly into the scramjet core. Notice the interior of this scramjet tube. No fans, no compressors, just a hollow, perfectly shaped geometric tunnel. The air is squeezing through this tunnel so fast and under such immense pressure that it becomes hot enough to ignite fuel on contact. The computer injects that vaporized, boiled fuel we talked about earlier directly into this supersonic tornado. Lighting a scramjet has been described as trying to keep a candle lit inside a Category 5 hurricane. The SR-72 doesn't just keep it lit, it weaponizes it. The exhaust blasts out the back with enough force to push the airframe past Mach 6. It is an engine powered by the sheer violence of its own forward momentum. We've examined the skin, the muscle, and the heart. Now we have to look at the nervous system, the avionics. And this is where the SR-72 becomes a ghost. When a machine travels at Mach 6, the friction is so intense that it doesn't just heat the air, it ionizes it. It strips the electrons directly off the oxygen and nitrogen molecules. This creates a plasma sheath, a glowing purple-white envelope of ionized gas that wraps around the entire aircraft. Here is the forensic problem. Plasma is a perfect shield against radio waves. It blocks radar, but it also blocks GPS. It blocks satellite communications. It blocks the link to the Pentagon. The moment the SR-72 hits its top speed, it goes completely blind and totally deaf. The pilot, or the AI, is isolated inside a screaming cage of fire. They are off the grid in the most literal sense possible. So how does it know where it is? How does it hit a target? Look at these internal sensors. This is quantum inertial guidance. The SR-72 doesn't need satellites. It has high-precision gyroscopes and accelerometers that measure its movement down to the molecular level.
It knows exactly where it is on the globe because it has calculated every inch of its journey from the moment the wheels left the tarmac. It is a solitary assassin. It memorizes the map before it goes in, and it executes the mission in total, silent darkness behind a wall of plasma. If you try to jam it, you're wasting your time. You can't jam a ghost that isn't listening. Which brings us to the final verdict, the reason this machine exists, the payload. Why build a machine that melts its own skin, balances on a shockwave, and blinds itself with plasma? Because of the high-speed strike weapon. The old SR-31 Blackbird was a spy. It just took pictures. The SR-72 is a predator. When you drop a weapon from a platform already moving at 4,000 miles per hour, you don't need explosives. You don't need a 2,000-pound warhead. A solid rod of tungsten dropped from the edge of space at Mach 6 hits the Earth with the kinetic energy of a tactical nuclear bomb. No radiation, no fallout, just total, absolute deletion of the target. Deeply buried command bunkers, moving aircraft carriers, nuclear silos, they are vaporized before the sound of the SR-72's arrival even registers on a microphone. You cannot run from it, you cannot shoot it down. Your missiles aren't fast enough to catch it from behind, and your radars can't see through the plasma to hit it from the front. The autopsy is complete. The SR-72 Darkstar isn't a plane, it is the end of the decision cycle. It is a bullet that can reach anywhere on the globe in less than an hour. I'm James. This has been a forensic trace for the hidden muster. Close the file. We're out.